There was a man I used to see. When I would head into town on 15 in Warsaw, I would see this guy. And oftentimes I'd see him. I don't really see him much anymore, but he would always be cleaning down in the ditches along the highway. He looked like he was maybe in his 70s, and he had like an old hat on and an old coat and old clothes. And he had a bag in one hand and a stick to steady himself. And he was always down in the trenches, in the ditches along the road, cleaning up trash, other people's trash. And I just would imagine some of the nasty things he must have ran into. Especially at this time of year when the weather's changing and you've got all kinds of animals crossing the road and getting hit because they're all groggy from waking up from their winter nap. And just all the trash bags and the swill, all the runoff from the fields and everything that must have been down in there. He had to have this stick. I always see him with this stick to keep himself upright as he's, struggling along through all that mud and trash and things down in the trenches. I don't know why he was doing it. I wondered if maybe he was just picking up aluminum cans, to turn in for cash, or maybe he's just a really blessed soul. I see these little signs along highways sometimes where an organization will try to keep a stretch of highway clean. I don't know if it was that sort of a situation or what, but I'd always see this guy out there, and he'd be working, doing this, what I would consider a nasty, awful job. We're all zooming up and down the highway, just blowing dust all over him and everything, while he's down there doing this awful job with all of our trash from living, just laying down there in the trenches. And I thought about this. I thought, life is kind of like that a little bit. Sometimes life is like you're down in the trenches and you're stumbling over the rocks and the ruts, and there's all this garbage laying around. It's your garbage from your life and your living, and other people's garbage is thrown in on top of it. And sometimes it doesn't smell all that great living down there in the trenches like that. And I thought, sometimes we really need a message of hopefulness when we're living down there in the ditches, down there in the trenches like that. And when I see this man down there in the ditches and the trenches like that, I think about the Transfiguration. Today is the day in the church calendar year when we remember the Lord's Transfiguration on the mountaintop. And it comes from Matthew 17, verses 1 through 9, and that's what we're going to look at today and see what message that holds for us today. Transfiguration, it's a fantastic story. It's where Jesus took 3 men, his closest friends, his most trusted disciples, and he went up on a mountaintop with them. And I'm not really sure, we're not told what they talked about. I can't even imagine what kind of conversation could have prepared them for what they witnessed once they made it up there. And Jesus decides, okay, this is the place where I'm going to reveal something special to these 3 guys. And it says that once they reached the mountain, that Jesus was transfigured before them. In other words, Jesus became what he truly was. He became God in the flesh. He was the Messiah who was revealed in his full glory. And his clothes were changed, it says, and they became whiter than snow. And I just imagine that his whole appearance changed, and he was amazing and beautiful. And this dusty, dirty Savior that has walked around in the trenches and in the ditches with these gentlemen for so long was now revealed in glory. He was no longer like you and I, but he was something else. And he was radiating with his holiness and his godliness and his full glory. And so this ordinary man that went with them, their friend and their teacher, was now this extraordinary being standing before them in all of his extraordinary glory. And if that wasn't enough, if that wasn't a most mind-blowing experience, we're told that Moses and Elijah were with him too. So now you have, along with Jesus in his full glory, radiating with God's holiness, bright light, white clothing, sparkling, you also have 2 of the most important men to these people. These were titans of the faith. These guys, this was Elijah, who was the prophet, the Old Testament prophet foretold to come before the Messiah. He was the guy who prayed and controlled the rains and who rode up into a sky on a flaming chariot. You can read about it in 2 Kings. And there was Moses, and this is the massive hero of the faith. This is the guy who led them out of Egypt and took God's people out of slavery and into freedom, into their own land, and who received the Ten Commandments directly from God on a mountaintop. This was amazing to behold. The significance cannot be overstated. And so Jesus takes his most trusted friends, his most faithful friends, and he takes them up there on the mountaintop to reveal his divinity, to say, you know what? I am who I said I am. I am the Son of God. I am the promised Messiah. I am God incarnate. And without a word, he revealed to them by changing his physical appearance, by changing into his glorified state. And he drove the point home even more so by appearing with two of the greatest prophets of old, two heroes of their faith who meant so much to these people. And when he did that, he took these guys from their past and their faith into the present. So it was bending time and bending reality that these guys were all together on the mountaintop. I'm trying to imagine myself what it would have looked like to Peter, James, and John. This would have been as close as they could have ever gotten to looking into the very face of God. And this was as close as they could possibly be to being in heaven at that very moment. They were basking in the glory of God, and they were hanging out with the saints of old. That's what heaven's going to be like. They were given a little taste of heaven in this mountaintop experience, and how incredible that must have been. And can any of us even comprehend the elation they must have felt, and the absolute bliss and the wonder of it all? And the thing I think about is this scene that they were beholding must have erased in an instant any doubts that they had of the ministry of Jesus, any doubts as to who he was and what he could do and how he fit into God's plan. And the other thing I think about is how all worries and all fears and all doubts must have been erased in an instant. And they must have seemed as far removed as that ditch, trench, that valley down off the mountain where they had just come from. And then Peter did what any of us would have done, I think. He was so awestruck, it says, that he really didn't even know what to say. But Peter's one to talk, and he says there in verse 4, Lord, it is good for us to be here. And when he said that, what he was saying is, Lord, I want to stay here. I don't want to go back down there anymore. And he even proposes this plan so that everybody can stay on that mountaintop and be happy. And he says he's going to make a way for us to all hang out here with the heroes of the faith, with God overshadowing us in glory. And he says, let me build us each a shelter. Let me make you a shelter, Lord. Let me make Elijah a shelter. Let me make Moses a shelter. And we're all just going to make houses up here. We're all just going to live here forever. We're going to stay up here. I don't want to go down there anymore. And I have to wonder how humorous that must have sounded to Peter. Clearly these guys have come from heaven, and they're right there, and they're chatting with Jesus, and he's wanting to build them an earthly shelter. I'm thinking those guys wanted to be there even less than those fellows did. But he wanted to stay there. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back down where it hurts. I don't want to go down there where my heart gets stomped on. And I don't want to go down there where I've got to break my back to make a living. I want to stay up here with you, Lord. And then, as if it couldn't get any better, suddenly the presence of God the Father descends upon them in a cloud. And he tells them in verse 5, this is my Son whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. And then they knew. They knew right then that God had revealed to them a message